All right, thank you for staying. This is Daybreak, reaching you from Trust Television right here in the nation's capital in Abuja. Time for us to take a look at the dailies on Daybreak. And we have in the studio Dr. Theophilus Abba. He is the director of Daily Trust Foundation. Thank you so much for joining us on Daybreak this morning.
And thank God that we are live.
Yes, indeed. All right, so let's begin with the Daily Trust newspaper. The lead story there says disquiet in APC over composition of campaign team. It has a writer that says Osibajo, Amechi's silence raises dust. You also have council fails to issue letters to nominees. Tinubu begins campaign with prayer session. We are open to working with all, says spokesman, and you will find all of that on page 4. The next, at the top, above the lead story, says FG backtracks, withdraws order to reopen universities. That's on page 6. INEC warns parties, candidates against hate speech. That's on page 25. Bandits kill police inspector. 3 others abduct dozens in Kaduna and Katsina on page 27. Flood cuts off Lokoja Highway, submerged houses and worship centers. That's on page 27. Above that, you would see the pictorial showing you how devastating the flood incident was. And then oil price dips to $85 per barrel. You'd find that on page 19. Unpaid allowances, ex-servicemen take protest to defense headquarters on page 23. Man visits Lagos police station to bail friend, steals policeman's phone. And that's on page 17. That's that for the Daily Trust newspaper. And of course, not forgetting that it's 467 days after the Birnin Yauri abduction. We still have 11 schoolgirls of the FGC Birnin Yauri in custody of the abductors. One student of Bethel Baptist High School, Kujama, 440 days after the abduction.
All right, now let's take a look at the Punch newspaper. It has a lead story that says 24 hours to campaigns. INEC, CAN, Sultan, warn parties, supporters against violence. The first writer says commission to publish voter register January 2023. SGF sues for peace. Avoid utterances, actions capable of causing violence. This is coming from Sawonlu Yakubu. Afenifere justifies Obi's endorsement. Tinubu's team fumes, tackles Adibanjo. Beneath that, and beneath the pictorial of the Amotekun Corps, we have a story that says Amotekun. Akeredolu insists on arms. Afenifere knocks federal government. Also, Ogun communities lament 100-year darkness. Electricity project rots. ICPC sets up committee to manage forfeited assets. Just by the masthead, Atiku names Saraki, Ayim, other special advisors. And above the masthead, federal government reverses varsity's reopening order. ASU adamant. Remove petrol subsidy, implement PIA. LCCI tells federal government. Group demands sanctions as power collapses 7th time. Also, mobile transactions hit 11 trillion naira in 8 months. This is based on a report. These are the major stories on the Punch newspaper for today.
All right, so let's take a look at the Nation newspaper next. It has the lead story that says Akeredolu, no going back on plan to arm Amotekun Corps. Weapons procurement will be backed by law. Outfit needs tools to carry out its duties. You also would have other stories above the masthead that says Tinubu Shetima joint ticket best for women. And that's on page 5 of the Nation. Then Atiku bypass Wike allies names Saraki Oyinlola advisors. You'd find that on page 28. And then 2,119 miners owing federal government 2.76 billion naira, says RMAFC. You have bandits kill 3, kidnap 22 in Kaduna communities. Below the pictorial, you'd find the story that says, "Done to plunge Nigeria into crisis. Khan, Sultan, warn religious leaders." You'd also find federal government reverses order urging VCs to reopen universities. These are the stories on the Nation newspaper.
And on this day newspaper for today, Autumn breaks with Wiki, says he's not supporting Ayu's removal. And the first rider says, reaffirms confidence in his ability to lead party to victory. PDP stakeholders pressure Atiku to prevail on chairman to quit. Dino Melaye is saying this, we're not threatened by our competitors. Ex-Vice President appoints Saraki Ayim Shekarau secondus other special advisors. And above that, Akeredolu, Amotekun must be given arms to carry out its duties. Also on this day, Nigeria's troubled power grid collapses again, begins recovery. We also have another story here. This is coming from INEC. In 2023, clear winners must score highest votes in poll, 1/3 of votes in 2/3 of 36 states. Also, coming from Adebanjo, why Afenifere is supporting Peter Obi's presidential bid. These are the major stories on the This Day newspaper.
All right, the next story, the next paper rather, is the Guardian newspaper. We have the lead story there says, INEC unveils ground rules for hit-free issue-based campaigns. And then you would also find FG makes U-turn, withdraws order to reopen universities, and you have orgy of killings, abductions in Plateau, Kaduna. You would see also above the lead story, market prices at higher risk ahead of MPR's decision. No going back on Beavers, e-transmission of results, INEC insists. Kaduna terrorist threatened to kill housewife, baby, others in 48 hours. Then ex-lawmaker kicks against state anniversaries, hails Emmanuel's feats. So these are the stories in the front page of the Guardian newspaper.
And the Leadership newspaper has a lead story that says, another transition begins tomorrow as INEC lifts ban on campaigns. Electoral body NBC declare hate speech, abusive slogans, no-go areas. APC launches electioneering with prayers, peace walk on Wednesday. Article names Saraki Ayim Onyilola secondus special envoy, special and technical advisors. Then Tinubu, Shetima, Wike, Autumn, others still in London. Also, we have a story here that says 2023, guard your utterances. This is Sultan Khan, warn religious leaders. Will arm Amotekun, Akeredolu vows. We can't replace Shekarau's name as NMPP's senatorial candidate. This is coming from INEC. Also, we have National Grid begins recovery after 7th collapse in 9 months. Bandits kill 3, kidnap 22, threaten to kill siblings, newborn. These are the major stories on the Leadership newspaper.
All right, so these are the papers that we have for this morning. We'll now take perspectives on some of these stories. Like we told you, Dr. Theophilus Abba, Director, Trust, Daily Trust Foundation, is with us to give perspectives. Thank you again for joining us on Daybreak. Now, let's begin with the Daily Trust newspaper. As always, the lead story here about the disquiet in APC over the composition of campaign team. Quite a lot of revelations following the composition of that team. We are now understanding that Oshibajo, the vice president, is not on the list. Also, one of the presidential aspirants at the time during the primaries, Rotimi Amechi, is also not on the list. And they've, been kind of quiet, such that it's now raising suspicion. I mean, they are not the only ones, but these are the two that...
Okay, I know that at the weekend, there were reports that the president removed the name of his deputy, that is Simbayo, from the campaign council. I think Osinbajo's name, from what we read, was removed. Then the Secretary to Government Federation's name was removed, and few others. And the reason given by the campaign team was that the president wanted Osinbajo and those who are critical to the administration to remain and do the job, to keep the government going, so that they are not caught in going from one part of the country to another in the name of campaign and then allow governance to suffer. So we have heard that. For that of Amaechi, well, it's not really very clear, why he was not there. So, it depends on the party now, to see.
Exactly, and if you look at people like Amaechi, who actually resigned his office as a minister to vie for the presidential seat and eventually lost, he's now still a party man though. And then you also have Adebayo Shitu, former Minister of Communications, who is also been involved with some kind of support group, for Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu. Still not on the list as well. So,
well, I'm thinking that it is prerogative of the party and the candidate, to decide who is on the list. But the consequence of some of these characters not be on the list is that the areas that they have maybe supporters, may not be available for the presidential candidate. For instance, Amaechi is expected, to be able to woo the South-South geopolitical zone for Tinubu. At the moment, we see Wike has a kind of a domineering figure. Like he's the main political mobilizer in that area. And we thought that Wike, Amaechi should be able to checkmate him in the South-South. So if Amaechi is not there, one begins to get worried. So how is Tinubu going to manage the South-South geopolitical zone?
Well, but this lead story on the Daily Trust also stated clearly that since he lost at the primaries, we haven't really seen Amaechi drumming support for the candidate of the APC.
Yeah, he has said it severally. From his utterances, I think he is not happy that Tinubu got that ticket. Because I've listened to him again and again. At a point he was even saying where people sold their, delegates sold their votes. Some of them are regretting that they did so. And maybe they had approached him. We don't know. We didn't hear from him. Perhaps they had approached him and said, look, I want to be left out of the whole of this campaign issue. I'm not convinced. If anyone is not convinced about being on, supporting the candidature of anyone, that you cannot compel them to be on the campaign council. Well,
the campaign is just barely 24 hours away. Apart from the APC, where there's disquiet, the PDP too is also having problems with its campaign team. Why do you think it's happening at this point? The primaries held over 2 months ago.
No, but there's a difference between what's happening in APC and what's happening in the PDP. Like, if you look at the PDP, at least we have some of those who contest against Atiku, joining the Atiku team now. People like Saraki, people like Anyim, they were part of the primary election. And Atiku has been able to rein them in and make them special advisors. So I'm thinking that, the two parties have their issue. It's only Wike, that
is it only Wike?
Very bitter.
Is it only Wike? Because we have PDP. A whole lot of others with Wike as well.
That is,
Governor Seyi Makinde of Oyo State. We still have.
I'm talking about those who contested against Atiku. Among those who contested against Atiku, it's only Wike that is blowing hot. But if you get to the APC, almost all of them. Okay, it's not even only Amaechi. What of Ogbonnayanu? We are not hearing about Ogbonnayanu any longer.
In fact, he didn't even show up during the primaries.
No, he spoke.
Sorry, Emeka Nwajuba.
He has disappeared. He has disappeared. So there's this kind of bitterness. In both APC and the PDP, and I don't think that is good for the election. You have this kind of bitterness. People are not happy. People are angry. I don't think the campaign will be very, very smooth.
Now we are seeing in the case of the PDP that there's another twist to the whole thing. This Day newspaper this morning is leading with a story that says that Otom breaks with Wike, says he is not supporting Ayu's removal. So again, that gives it another dimension.
I know. I don't think Otom has ever said that he wanted Ayu to be removed. I don't think he has ever said so. You go and check. You know, Otom supports, I mean, he's in alliance with Wike. I mean, maybe in principle. But he has never said that, Ayu should be removed. And I think that headline is the measure of exaggeration. There's exaggeration there.
So to what extent is the alliance between Otom and Wike? Because one of the Wike's major concern is Ayu's removal from as chairman of the PDP.
No, okay. Let's look at the sequence.
To what extent is that alliance?
Let's look at the sequence. You see, Otom, has always felt that power should go to the south. He has never hidden that. And if you have listened to him again and again, he's not comfortable that, let me put it this way, another Fulani person will take over if PDP wins because of his experience with the Hadas and all those crises with the Fulani and all those things. He has never hidden that. And if he has said it again and again that, look, all things being equal, the South should produce the next PDP presidential candidate. So at that level, there is an agreement between him and Wike. But to say that Ayu must be removed as chairman, Otom has never said that. You know, Otom has never said that. But
then, how else will the party now balance?
Because removing Ayu is like, because there are a lot of arguments around it. Number one, the party always has this way of zoning positions. If the presidency comes from the north, the chairman of the party comes from the south. At the time Ayu was elected as chairman of the PDP, the ticket went to the North Central. We're expecting that, the president will come from the south. That was the assumption, But now, the party has not won that presidential election. If the party wins the presidential election, then we should be thinking about removing the chairman, bringing another person from the south to be the chairman of the party. And Ayu knows this. Otom knows this very well. It is not at the point of election that you remove the chairman. It is at the point where the election has been won that the chairman, that you now begin to, rejig the leadership of the party. And Otom knows this very well. And saying that he has, that Otom is no longer with Wike conclusively, based on the fact that he said, look, I'm not supporting Ayu's removal. It's too.
So is Wike not aware of this? That they shouldn't expect resignation before the eventual election, before the candidate emerges eventually as president, if he does.
As far as the party's constitution is concerned, that is what it's supposed to be. But as for Wike, he's pressing for the removal of Ayu on other grounds. One of them is allegation of corruption. He is saying that, look, this man was chairman, or his chairman was biased.
But the major reason he has emphasized the removal of Ayu is because of the issue of balancing the party structure, the party leadership structure.
Yes, but he's doing it for the sake of argument. But in reality, what happens is that it is only when the election is won, when Atiku becomes president, that you cannot say, okay, now Atiku is president, we cannot, not at the level of running for an election.
Then at this point, maybe the issue of balancing shouldn't even come in.
It shouldn't.
Maybe it should just be about the allegations so far.
Yes.
Because I also saw a statement by Jonah Jang of Plateau State where he made some allegations against the chairman of the party. The way he conducted himself during the primaries was one of the things.
It's
that
one of the allegations that
raised.
they have leveled against. You see, the PDP, let me say there was a kind of confusion in the party, because everybody was thinking that, how do we win this election? If we feel the northern candidate, that's when we win the election. And that to some extent may just be what I would call, a product of fear. But going by what the party has done over the years, if the presidency, if the president of the country for 8 years came from the south, from the north, then the next president should come from the south, no matter how you decide to argue it out.
All right. So campaigns are about to begin from tomorrow. With all of this conflict in both, I would say, in these two major political parties, how is this going to, impact on their campaigns and eventually the election in 2023?
Well, the major challenge is that if there is no harmony in the parties, then we fear that there will be a lot of maybe hate speech, a lot of hatred, a lot of violence may even erupt. The tendency is that if a candidate is approaching, is going to a zone that has, let me put the word, political enemies, it may not be received there. The way it ought to have been received. So I fear that there could be violence, during the campaign. And I fear that there will be a lot of hate speech spread. Violence
during the campaign, I don't get that, because this confusion right now is within the parties. It's not against both parties yet. It's within the parties getting their acts together before the campaign.
No, it's within the parties, but all the party, leaders, the guys who are bickering, they have their strongholds. For instance, if one of those who is against the candidate comes from village A, he will say, okay, I don't want this guy to come to my village to come and campaign. If he comes, my talks should attack. That is the kind of thing that I fear could happen, because
what you're trying to say is that there could be members of the same party who work against their own candidates.
Of course,
that's what you're trying to say.
There could be members of the same party. For instance, I expect that there should be a lot of security alert in the South-South. I expect that should be done. Security operative must be at alert in the South-South. And in some parts of, other parts of the country should be at alert, because if there's this kind of bitterness, it means that, for instance, if Atiku goes to maybe Rivers to campaign, he has to be very careful. I'm not saying that he'll be attacked, but he has to be very, very careful, about what will happen there. So that's why I'm thinking that this campaign may witness a lot of violence. And now that we have all sorts of, crisis, insecurity, across the country, any violence can be pinned on any non-state actor.
Mm. All right. So, for options, in terms of options before Nigerians now, with all these conflicts, now, do you see that these two political parties can actually make the most, of the opportunities before them?
You mean options in terms of who to vote for?
Yes, that's for Nigerians now, generally.
Well, during the campaign, we expect the parties to unfold their agenda, to tell us this is what we're going to do. These are our, programs. These are strategies we are going to employ. So Nigerians, should be attentive, to know who, has credible programs and projects. And strategies that would deliver the country from this current problem. Because we have a lot of problems in this country today. We want to see how we can come out of the debt crisis.
Do you see these campaigns going to be issue-based? Because we have had campaigns where it's just one party attacking the other party or attacking individuals, as it were.
Well, right from, as at now, we are seeing a lot of attacks on personalities, seeing a whole lot of it. And that is not the right thing. Nigerians are listening. It's supposed to be issue-based. But as at now, we have not seen, the candidates, discussing issues. We are not seeing them. Although I know Atiku, is launching some books, is it tomorrow or when? And those books are supposed to signpost what he's going to do. But then we have not seen clearly how, these candidates are going to deliver us from the current, predicament. We have not seen them yet. So we're expecting that, they should come up with ideas. How are you going to get us out of the debt crisis? How are you going to deal with unemployment? How are you going to deal with this issue called subsidy, fuel subsidy? How are you going to handle it? How are you going to deal with insecurity? You know, because these are the things that Nigerians are listening to.
With all this bickering within the parties, it's almost as if no one is even paying attention to the real problems, to the real issues that Nigerians are actually yearning for. Because, I mean, the major political parties are carried away by, you know, the power tussle, the power sharing arrangements, you know, even before the election and all of that. Meanwhile, you know, expectedly, the parties are supposed to be talking about their party manifesto. They are supposed to be talking about how do we deal with this issue? How do we deal with that issue? And the rest of them.
Those are the things we're supposed to be, listening to. Because, you know, there's no way you can tell us that you want to be president and we cannot predict what you will do. And for us to predict what you will do, we have to hear from you.
We have even had instances where people have accused members of their party of sharing portfolio even before the elections. And one will be wondering, at this point, is that what we should even be talking about?
When you talk about power sharing, I think one of the things that will motivate politicians to work for any candidate is the promises that have been made to them. You know?
Shouldn't the focus be on how to get it first?
Yes, for us who are going to vote, you know, we should know what they are planning. But for politicians who are going to invest a lot of resources, they want to know what they will get. You know, I think it's normal in every political engagement to know what is in it for. But then our own concern is, look, we need a system that can deliver from our predicament. That is my major concern.
All right, well, let's talk about other issues now. We have the issue of Amotekun again on the lead story. We have, I think it's the Punch, or I would say the Nation newspaper, leads with a story that says Akeredolu is saying that no going back on plan to arm Amotekun Corps. So it appears that there's this problem of equipping Amotekun with the weapons that they need to be able to carry out their duties, and yet we have seen that more and more states are coming up with their own arrangements, like in Zamfara, for instance, to be able to guarantee the safety of lives and all that. So why are we stuck in this? Like, we have, yes, sometimes we blame the states. We say, oh, the states should go ahead and do what they need to do to, bring about security in their states. I mean, they are the chief security officers of their states. But when they make steps, when they take steps, they get stuck at some point. Still takes us back to the issue of having state policing, don't you think?
Well, I think the mood of the nation is in support of what Akeredolu is saying, because we have a shortage of security personnel. Let me put it that. I think that is how raw we can put it. It's whereby many communities are not protected. It's whereby people are very vulnerable to attacks, and people just get killed, get kidnapped, and there's nothing anybody can do about it. One is kidnapped, and the police will say, well, if they call you, negotiate with them, make sure you are careful, because there's nothing we can do. So we cannot continue to run a country like that. So that's why the issue of Amotekun even came up in the first place. If we had more policemen, and we've been campaigning for the recruitment of policemen, I think the president said that they were going to recruit 10,000 policemen every year. It hasn't happened. And if you go to a typical, Nigerian rural community, how many policemen are there? In my village, there is no policeman. And so you now discover that because of this shortage of personnel, security personnel, these guys who engage in violence, they just do it freely. So I think that it is time for government to realize the need for state police and effectively amend the constitution to allow states to recruit policemen that can manage security across the country. As of today, the number of policemen that we have are not enough, and that is why the issue of Amotekun is coming up. That's why even in the southeast, you have ESN. I mean, they are claiming that they are providing security.
You have made the point that we need state police. However, the fear is still there. And that's the fear of these people behaving the way they like, attacking people indiscriminately. This ESN that you mentioned, you recall not too long ago, they shot some people who went for a wedding celebration in Imo State. Now, so that fear is there, and now that fear has not been tackled. So arming them fully, is that the way to go?
Well, I don't know, because if you don't arm them, how do they challenge the bandits and the criminals, you know, that attack and kill, you know, because you see, if you are a security man, and we have heard again and
what
again.
What can be done before arming them? What should be done before arming them?
There has to be proper training, you know. First of all, we have to pass a law that will guarantee, that will empower states to have state police. I think that is what the National Assembly ought to have done. You know, we keep saying that if you pass this law and the governors have police, they use against their enemies, they use against their opponents. It doesn't, the policemen have a lot of work to do, other than just pursuing the opponents of governors. There's a whole lot of work to do. So if we pass the law to say, okay, states can have policemen, then these policemen are trained, properly trained. They are given the rules of engagement, and they must abide by the rules of engagement. If you violate it, you are punished. If you kill indiscriminately, you are arrested and detained. And maybe even, maybe the law will have to take its course. But we cannot keep saying that, Motiku cannot bear arms, and then we'll have some guys in the bush killing people, and we'll have some criminals shooting and going away with it. I mean, nobody to challenge them. If you have listened to policemen who have confronted these criminals, they will tell you that, look, their weapons were more superior. You are just carrying a baton, and somebody is carrying an AK-47. You know, there's no match, and that is why criminality is on the increase, in spite of, what government claims is achieving. So I'm feeling that if we don't want Amoteku to bear arms, then we have to approve, this idea of a state police, so that we can have more security personnel to protect the country.
In any case, the subnationals are already having one form of arrangement or the other that have
even
a semblance.
If you go to Borno State,
the state police.
The civilian JTF has done a whole lot. They have done a whole lot to tackle the terrorists in Borno State, because they provided intelligence. Some of them are even so daring that they can go to the camps of these terrorists and disorganize them. So I'm thinking that we need more security personnel.
All right, so quite a number of issues here. Still on security issues, we have, according to reports, bandits kill police and 3 others abduct dozens in Kaduna and Katsina yesterday. In fact, earlier we saw a report of how some communities fled their homes into Katsina city and all of that. That still points us back to the issue of insecurity in the country. Well, I think that's that for this morning, as much as we can take. Thank you so much for joining us on Daybreak.
Thank you.
We look forward to having you again.
Thank you.
Guest reviewer, Dr. Theophilus Abba, the director of Daily Trust Foundation, giving us perspectives on the stories on the front pages.